Ladies and gentlemen, we are live and welcome to Covestro Live. And we really are live, this time from Sao Paulo in Brazil and Pittsburgh, PA in the United States. I am Nico Palosuo and I have the honor of moderating today's talk with two distinguished experts whom I will introduce shortly in our circular economy studio. Now, timing could be more acute for today's topic. We are seeing the continued effects of climate change, loss of biodiversity, and plastics pollution. The economic linear model of take, make, waste has certainly come to an end. We all know that. And the nature is, I think, increasingly telling us it can no longer pay the price. So we must embrace a circular approach that designs waste out of the system, prioritizing the reduction, reuse, recycling, and even the upcycling of materials, including plastics. By doing so, we can hope to break free from the destructive cycle of waste generation and pave the way for a more sustainable future. But no one can do it alone. There needs to be a collaborative approach that balances the resources we have on this planet. Just recently, we saw Sitra from Finland host the World Circular Economy Forum in Helsinki. And also just recently, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, or INC for short, convened in Paris to come up with a global treaty to fight plastics pollution. So we see plenty of positive signals pointing in the direction that if we want to, we can transform into circular economy that helps keep our planet inhabitable for everyone. Now, let me introduce the two experts for today's talk. Let's start from the south with Beatriz Luz from Brazil. She leads the Circular Economy Hub in Brazil and is founder of Exchange for Change in the same country. Here we go. Welcome, Bia.
Hello, Nico and everyone. It's a great honor to be here, be able to participate in this live conversation and share a little bit of the Brazilian circular economy journey.
And you just came from Finland, from Helsinki, from my home country. So it's great to see that you move around to discuss the topic.
Yeah, sure. I think the world is all interconnected, supply chains are integrated, and we are one big family that needs to work together towards economy in a global level.
Great. And our other guest is from the United States, Melissa Bilec, professor for civil and environmental engineering at the University of Pittsburgh. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here today. And Beatriz, it's interesting. One of my favorite colleagues I worked with her. She was a postdoc and she was from Brazil. And her name's Fernanda, and she's just starting in a role at Drexel University. And she's truly also a leader in circular economy too.
Wow. So we certainly need to connect.
Yeah.
We can see Brazil and United States leading the charge. For our audience, before we start our discussion, maybe just a quick introduction of kind of who you are and what you do. And Melissa, let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Nico. It's so nice to be here. Again, my name is Melissa Bilec, and I am the co-director of the Mascaro Center for Sustainable Innovation at the University of Pittsburgh. And we really serve as the research and education hub for sustainability for the university. And I'm also a professor in civil and environmental engineering. And my research has largely focused on improving the built environment. I also focus on areas that are really important to me, including environmental justice, sustainable healthcare, and then most importantly, and recently, is really thinking about circular economy and how the strategies of circular economy can help to then drive our positive climate change strategies.
Perfect. Thank you, Melissa. And Beatriz, a few words of who you are and what you do.
Wow, I'm a chemical engineer from Rio. I had the opportunity to live and work in the UK for 10 years. That's where I acquired this kind of systemic view of sustainability and how sustainability needed to be embedded in decisions. I worked with industrial symbiosis, which for me is the kind of a starting point for circular economy. So in 2015, I decided to come back to Brazil. 2010. Oh my God, we missed the timelines as we go around. 2010, I came back and worked for a Brazilian plastic company. And this was when I kind of started to follow the discussions around the circular economy. And I got passionate about that model, seeing that it was the only way for us to continue producing and in balance with the environment. And in 2015, I decided to do my own transition and decided that my mission was going to bring circular economy to Brazil in the Brazilian terms, with a lot of knowledge exchange, co-creation, and adaptation for the Brazilian reality. So here I am, almost 8 years working that journey.
Perfect, Beatriz. I think the planet really needs people like you and also Melissa. Without individual commitment, I don't think we will be seeing any change. So before we start going deeper into the dialogue, let me remind you, dear audience, and yes, that is you, you can and should be a part of this conversation. So please type in your comments, your observations, or protests in the chat on your platform, YouTube or LinkedIn, and we will be able to see and react to your comments in real time. And you can also ask questions to our experts during the talk in English, of course, but also in Portuguese or Finnish, Finnish being the world language. We also have a Slido poll up, so you can have your say. I mean, and actually the first question is about personal commitment. So I really want to hear from you. Just go to slido.com, type #circular and vote. And the first poll is up already. We are asking you, have you personally taken any steps? Like we just heard from Beatriz, she took personally some steps. Have you taken personally any steps to embrace the circular economy in your daily life? If yes, please share what actions you have taken. And if no, what barriers or challenges do you face in doing so? So what's kind of keeping you, Femi, from doing what you want to do? So I'm looking forward to see what comes up on Slido, and let's take a look at that later on. But let's start the discussion by really describing maybe where we are today. And I think it's great that we have, two guests here who represent kind of the global south and the global north. Of course, I'm simplifying a lot, but yeah, Brazil is the second largest economy in the Western Hemisphere, and United States is the world's largest economy. So, whatever happens, these two countries will have a major impact on the planet. But let's go a little bit deeper into these countries, and I will want to start with you, Beatriz. As you have your global experience, we just heard, and you have been driving really grassroots sustainability programs in Brazil, which I think is great. How has Brazil, in your view, embraced the circular economy principles? Maybe you can highlight some policies or initiatives.
Yeah, sure. I think my first point is to say that it's not the case of if we need to change, but it's the case now of how we change towards a circular economy. And I think the world is all interconnected and supply chains are all integrated. And I took to put together a time to show you how close the discussions are in Latin America and Europe. We've seen in the lead region launching the Circular Economy Action Plan. And I constantly get asked, Nico, but this is going to take ages to arrive to Latin America and the States. It's going to take 10 years for the people to take it. But actually what we are saying, this is happening almost in time because of all this integration that we have on the supply chains and resource management, exploration and usage. So like a timeline, which gives us some examples. Okay.
Cool.
Can you see?
Put it up, and I'm able to share it with the audience. Yes, very much so. I'll put it big so we can all enjoy it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the point to highlight is that the discussion is very, very recent, but is going very, very fast. So the circular economy package was presented in 2014, and an action plan was valid 1 year afterwards. In 2018, circular economy has already become law in Europe. And in the meantime, 2015 was a really important year for Latin America because Ellen MacArthur arrived in Brazil, and I started Exchange for Change Brazil, both with a mission to accelerate the transition in the country. So in 2018, we see CTCN, a UNIDO organization, funding a roadmap towards circular economy in Chile, Brazil, Uruguay, and Mexico. And we started a lot of awareness raising campaigns with the Brazilian National Bank, with the Innovation Agency, and our first international collaboration with the Netherlands, when we possibly was the potential to do a lot of knowledge exchange and produce the book, the first circular economy book in Portuguese. So we see in 2019, not a long time ago, as becoming a priority at the EU Green Deal, and finance organizations like the Black creating funds specifically for circular economy. So in 2020, we saw a new action plan and a document that is started demonstrating the potential for financing circularity in Europe. And time in Latin America, we saw the launch of a circular economy Latin America coalition. And this was a very important year. I think is a landmark. Brazil industry produced a strategic map embedding circular economy into a strategic element. We started a discussion with the ISO for circular economy, and we launched the Brazilian Circular Economy Hub, a unique ecosystem that we have pleasure to have Covestro as one of our members here in Brazil. That circular economy is becoming the 4 key priority areas in Brazil, and is coming along very nicely with the discussions in Europe. So in this last 2 years, we've seen the same movement in evaluating the potential to finance circularity in Europe, but also with a vision for the region. So a document published by UN and IDB, which we had the opportunity to contribute, brought recommendations for public policy and financial instruments to Latin America. A vision was produced and published for the region, and we see now a big movement focusing on the global south, with the Brazil government stability of approving a circular economy national policy. And the last 2 World Circular Economy forums were dedicated to talk about Africa, the global south, and we have the pleasure to be working on a big event next year together with the Netherlands to bring all experts to Brazil to discuss the Brazilian circular economy hotspots. And finally, a global roadmap is in place for an inclusive circular economy. So I think that shows that Latin America is coming along very nicely with the discussion. The industry is very much engaged. The government is now a lot of directives and guidelines, and there's a lot of possibilities for us to bring our biodiversity, bioeconomy, and bring a lot of new circular products and solutions to the global market. So that's what I want to show as a really good context for our discussion.
Thanks, Beatriz. And I think it's great to see the kind of commitment growing over the years and having such an impact. And of course, also companies taking a more serious and a serious approach. I can remember Jyrki Katainen mentioning in his remarks in Finland on the World Circular Economy Forum that circular economy is an economy. So it is also a business. So the profitability and seeing investment chances in that area, I think is definitely a crucial part. Thank you, Beatriz. Melissa, maybe we can go to you next. I think the audience would be super interested to kind of know where we are from the United American perspective, and maybe you could give us a sense of where the United States is going overall, realizing that United States is a big country with many layers of government.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nico. And Beatrice, I love your timeline that you developed. I think that is such a smart way to kind of show the progression. I was thinking as you were talking, one of the things that I hope to do maybe after our time together is to do something similar for the US. I think that would really help to, like, in other parts of the world as well, to kind of show people how things are coming together. And I just wanted to make a couple points, not with a really nice timeline, but to mention, two things. One of the things that I think is really important is that we use the word circular economy, but it really is circular economies. So when you start to think about, while we work in this, really important, global kind of perspective, there are regional opportunities that will really drive, I think, the circular economy, and also allow for opportunities to engage elements of environmental injustices. So can circular economy help solve some of the environmental injustices that are happening? I know that there are some thought leaders in the United States that have been working on this issue, and I think that that's an important part of the conversation. In how I think what's happening in the U.S., I'll comment on two aspects. One, I think the U.S. is continuing to lead in innovation and design for circular economy. I think that how the U.S. is thinking about redesign and reuse of different aspects of products and processes, I think is kind of something that we're really proud of. And I would say the other aspect that has been emerging more publicly is this concept of right to repair. So right now, there are 20 different pieces of legislation that are being introduced in different states throughout the United States. And I think that there were at least 2 to 3 that were recently passed. And so at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult for any country or any state to enable circular economies if there are legislative barriers. And so right to repair is one of the many examples that we need to think about as we move forward in this conversation.
Thanks, Melissa. I think that's super interesting to hear, and also I think the mindset of the populations around the world is sometimes it has to change. It hasn't in some parts, and it has in others. And that's maybe a question I want to ask you guys before I can see, dear audience, you are already giving your input to the Slido we'll be looking at shortly. But before we go there, maybe you can both comment on what is the awareness, the societal awareness to go into circular. To maybe it's societal awareness towards climate change, maybe it's societal awareness towards plastics pollution, maybe it's biodiversity. But overall, how would you kind of gauge from your perspective what is the societal awareness to kind of go there? Are we maybe to rephrase it? Are we worried enough? Who wants to go first?
Beatrice, you should go first.
That's a big question, right, Melissa? I think the reason where I approach these debates, Nico, is about providing inspiration for change. I think enforcement and incentives, of course, put us on track on a new direction. But people are moved by desire, by making circularity sexy and beautiful and desirable. So I think we need to bring beautifully, for example, designed products made out of recycled content and made people see this circularity in practice. So it's not about demonstrating the sorting system as a way of demonstrating, oh, this is circularity. I think circularity has to be on our hands in a kind of a jacket made with recycled fibers, furniture made with recycled polymers, so many amazing materials that Covestro are developing. So people need to see the full cycle. And just putting another comment I said about the just transition, I think this is the beauty of the circular economy for Latin America. We need to demonstrate that we can generate new jobs. If we are going towards economy that is about repair, remanufacture, reuse, sharing, that give us an opportunity for a lot of training, skills buildings program. I don't want to see waste pickers on the streets collecting, waste and making a living out of that. I want to be able to train them so they can recover the value of the material. And just as a last point, because I think there's a comment here from Juan Antonio about highlighting that green is more expensive. But what does it mean, expensive? I think it's all about narrative, point of view, and how you calculate the tax of return. So we need to bring other indicators into the calculation. I constantly say that there is no reverse logistics in circular economy, because reverse logistics is something that is mandatory for the companies, and the companies only see as cost. But if we demonstrate the potential to create new alternative reverse supply chains of new materials that have got a value at the end, and they are desirable and potentially new performance and value to that products, then it changes completely the mindset. That's my final remark.
Thank you, Beatriz, and also thanks, Juan, for your timely comment. Melissa, maybe you can touch on that, but also give your opinion on where do you see the societal awareness today? Is circular economy, desirable enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it's a really interesting question, Nico, and one that I think about a lot, especially, I work at the university. I'm with super energetic and very talented students that are very passionate about environmental issues. And so part of me thinks is the question, is it personal awareness? But I also think there are top-down, decisions that need to be made as well that complement that. And the two kind of go hand in hand. And so as an example is you could personally be very aware of something, but then trying to then purchase something that is, fully circular, or trying to even understand like where your materials come from your clothing can be extremely difficult. So I think that there's a personal awareness, but I think that there's a government and a corporate awareness as well that needs to occur at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's look at the Slido results. What have our wonderful audience said? I'll make it big so everybody can see it. Here we go. This is what our audience shared. You guys want to make it bigger. You guys want to comment on that? Avoid packaging when possible. Another one, avoid packaging, short weight, reuse. Not a lot of comments, but some still. Any color commentary from your part?
I would say like the avoid packaging is great, but like individually, how do we avoid packaging? Like,
yeah.
I mean, we could reuse, but if I have, as an example, if I have something shipped to me, it's very limited to what I can do to avoid the packaging, right? So I think again, we need to think, and this goes to the point that Beatriz said in the beginning, and I have a background in industrial ecology as well, is like what systemic kind of changes can we make to really drive change. Of those listed, I think the reuse is so important. It's very tough, and to me, the biggest thing to kind of crack with circular economy is the issue of value. How do we revalue different commodities? How do we revalue the importance of dignity in work? And so that to me is like the nut to crack with circular economy.
Perfect. And I love how we can see in real time how people are putting more commentary. Beatriz, maybe your quick comments before we move on. We'll move on.
I think Melissa brought important points. Circular economy is about keeping and maintaining the value of materials and products for a longer time. So after all these years working hands-on and very close with the companies, understanding the internal challenges and the challenges of the value chain, my reflection, Melissa, is that circular economy is about creating new economic equilibrium around the value chain. It's about bringing companies to discuss the circular solutions in an integrated way, not so much procurement and providers, but more like a 3-4 multi-stakeholder engagement, because we needed to create a new balance, a new economic balance. And of course, the market pool, the companies kind of creating the demand will help us to build the necessary infrastructure along the value chain. So it's all about economy, yeah? It's about opportunity and seeing this as new opportunities for us to develop, products and services and new ways of living, and behavior change is obviously really important as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Beatriz. And actually, I will, go next about, what should be done, or maybe what are missing pieces of the wheel. And thanks to our audience for the great, input from your side. I can show my personal input. Let me just show it right now. So actually, my studio, where it is here, is run by solar power, and currently, it's outputting it's a real-time figure. So it's now, it's 3.3 kilowatts of electricity. I can guarantee you my computer is using less than 3.3 kilowatts electricity. So what I'm doing right now, hosting you guys, is definitely not creating any emissions locally. Of course, what happens after that is a different question. I just wanted to make sure even communications professionals can do their part to make sure that we reduce our own footprints as much as we can. Perfect. So, and I want to go kind of next to kind of making the wheel round, because there's so many parts of making the wheel round. Circular economy, as you have both said, is a complex topic. It requires a lot of things to kind of make it function. And you've touched already on some of them, but maybe we can continue a little bit on what you would see as the most pressing points that would need to be, if not fixed, but improved. And actually, before you start, I have another Slido poll on this, because I want to hear your opinion as the audience. Again, slido.com, #circular. And now the question is, which aspect of the circular economy do you believe requires the most attention and improvement globally? So again, please cast your vote or put your comments in the chat, and we will discuss. I want to start with you, Melissa. Maybe you can start by sharing your thoughts on what are we maybe mostly missing to make the circular economy circular.
Yeah, I thank you, Nico. And I do think it's, when you're thinking about, redesign of economies and, huge systemic changes, it's difficult to point to one thing. However, I will say the one thing that I think that is really interesting is the concept of design for circular economy. And so right now, the majority of things that we do design is, we think maybe think about how we can recycle them at a product or process at the end of its life. But this needs to occur at the beginning, kind of at the molecular phase. And not only that, but we need to think about how these products and processes then translate into the whole city scale across different layers, and really understand how the designers and how people interact at each layer, so that when something is at the end of life, how can we reuse it in an effective manner?
Perfect. Thank you, Melissa. And I want to go really quickly already to the Slido, because we are seeing that so far, actually, the audience is agreeing with you, Melissa. Designing products for durability and repairability seems to be what also our audience feels. Beatriz, you have such amazing experience of building these multi-stakeholder partnerships to get the job done. But what would be your kind of top of mind topics that we would need to do even more to accelerate the progress?
Well, Nico, I think from my experience, I would like to highlight 3 key points. Yeah. First of all, one thing that I've seen being discussed a lot at the World Circular Economy Forum is the role of technology. Yeah. Some people see the technology as a great solution for circular economy, but there is a very important point. Technology is only one part. Yeah, if we develop the technology without the integration of the value chain and the market pool and the market demands, then it will stay in the university, right, Melissa? We need to bring the companies together and integrate the technology with the market demand. And then it brings me to the second point, which you highlighted, Nico, is how you make connections internally among all the departments in big organizations, and also through the value chain and multi-sectors. So it's about building coalitions. It's about having a independent facilitator to get the hands of everybody, bring everybody around the table, creating a joint agenda for change. This is the only way to achieve that new economic balance that I mentioned before, because otherwise a discussion will be only about price and volume and who has the strength to pull the negotiations to their side. And the third element is creating a favorable ecosystem. So of course, education, policies, incentives, in order to get the change in the way the companies are designing products for durability, but also the consumer to understand the value of buying something with refill, reuse. So our values, our behaviors, the role of every one individual plays an important role as well, because then you can push the industry to bring new products, new materials, and new experiences.
Thank you, Beatriz. And I think the audience seems to be agreeing with you. If I look at some of the commentary we are getting from our audience, that certainly seems to assist your point of view. I think we lost just Melissa for the time being. Maybe she's coming back in a while. This is why I love live broadcasts so much, because anything can happen and we just have to deal with it. So I'm hoping Melissa will come back when she finds the charger to her laptop or whatever it is. And there she is back. Melissa, we thought we lost you for a second. We can see you, but we cannot hear you.
Oh yeah, I think my Wi-Fi dropped.
That's again, this is the love for the live stream. You never know what happens. Thank you so much I think these are super valuable comments on what the society and the economy needs to do overall to go more into a circular economy and make it into a reality. And also from Covestro, we have some, I think, fantastic examples how you can really drive the technology of circular economy, and we are having actually more information on that coming up next month in another live stream. Let's end up, and feel free to address some of the audience feedback we have been receiving so far. I think that's super important. If you want to pick on any of those, feel free to do so. Thank you very, very much, Ahmad, for your commentary. One final point I want to kind of end with, and this is about really our role as consumers. I mean, we are professionals, we may be consumers. I mean, we all have a important part to play to make the circular economy work. I mean, you, Beatriz, also mentioned earlier that there's actually a big economy in waste management. I read somewhere that over half of the waste of the world is actually, picked manually by the informal sector. So we are talking really about large societal changes as we are making the decisions on how to improve the system. But let's go back a little bit about our role as consumers, because we do live in a world that is still driven by convenience and consumption. So maybe how could we inspire and maybe tap into the society's willingness? As we can see, there clearly is a willingness to actively participate in circular economy. And maybe you can comment on some of the approaches and incentives maybe you have seen in your part of the world to embrace sustainable consumption and really not create any waste at all. Maybe you can comment on that, and after that we will look at the Slido again. You want to go first, Beatriz?
Yeah, I think there is one important element for us to understand, that I usually say a lot of things must happen at the same time. So we are used to work towards a step-by-step change. Oh, who is going to go first? Is it the industry? Is it the public policies, the incentives? What comes first? And I think what we are seeing to accelerate the transition is that every part of the society, of the value chain, must play a part at the same time. And I think the consumers, they are at the end of the value chain. So if we start using social media and assessing the companies and requesting for new products and new services, then you can direct the path of the industry. I usually say that competition now is not more about cost and performance. It's about the value proposition. There are so many different brands in the market. So how are you going to differentiate yourself on the shelf? Yeah. So I think this is an important element for the industry to understand. New business are coming along, new experiences developed by the young people. So we saw the big changes on mobility with the Uber, hotel accommodation with the Airbnb. So if we present something to the market that brings more convenience, that is cool, that is convenient, without the pollution and the waste, people will take up. So that's my take on that.
Thanks, Beatriz. I think that's very inspiring. Melissa, you work with young students every day. What's your take?
Yeah, well, first of all, Beatrice, that was such a great answer. I mean, I don't know. I agree with what you're saying and the value proposition. And in terms of working with young students, I think energetic people and people that are passionate about environmental issues, it's really giving opportunities to make the change, right? And so the young students are very well educated on environmental issues, and they're ready for action. The last part I would say is when we think about incentives, it's really hard to design effective incentives without unintended consequences. So you have to think about the systems perspective and how we quantify that. And I think that's a really important part of the conversation too.
Thanks, thanks, Melissa. I think that's right now decisions are being made and maybe policies being drafted where you got to be careful to enable the system to go circular instead of creating unintended consequences, because we are seeing such a massive change. I want to thank you both, Melissa and Beatriz, for your time to spend with us and talk with us today. And of course, thanks to our brilliant and super active audience for your great engagement. And please tune in again, because I feel that we could go on and on, but of course we have to respect the time of you both. But please, our dear audience, tune in again next month, July 12th, where we plan to continue to explore how to make the circular economy a reality with all the great stuff that's being done around the world. But till then, I want to thank you both, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Melissa. And let's see you around circling materials, products, and service and experience around the globe.
Perfect. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.